We have to rethink our relationships with people who we have to constantly keep saying our boundaries to. I know that we love these people. I know that we want them around. I know that sometimes they've been our friends for a long time. But if you have to constantly keep telling someone your boundaries, you have to constantly keep on telling them, I don't like this. Please don't do that, whatever it may be, then you need to rethink that relationship and ask yourself, is this relationship a fit for who I am today? The reality is this. Boundaries are our guidebook that we give to other people on how to be in our life in a healthy way. So this is what you have to do in order to be in my life in a healthy way today. So everyone needs boundaries. You need boundaries from the people who you're in their life, and the people who are in your life need boundaries as well. But when you're dealing with people who you have to constantly keep telling them your boundaries and reinforcing them over and over and over again, that may not be a person who's a fit for your life today. A, because that person may not respect your boundaries. If someone has to be told the same thing over and over again, it's not that they're forgetful, it's usually that they don't care. All right. So A, they may not respect your boundaries, or B, how they want to operate just may not align with what you need in your life. And you have to be able to recognize that and be able to ask yourself, is this someone that still can have space within my life? I can say from my own experience that for me being a people pleaser, I'm not one anymore, but I'm someone who definitely struggled with that for a very long time in my life. I felt like I attracted people around me who really loved the fact that I struggled to set boundaries. And so they would take advantage of that. They would do things over and over again to try to push my boundaries out. It's not that they didn't know that I didn't like something, because I already told them I didn't like it. But what they would do is they keep on pushing and keep pushing, keep trying the same things over and over again, keep making the same requests over and over again, even though I told them, no, I don't want to do that in the past. They would do that because they recognized that I struggled to say no. You got to listen to this. When people recognize that you struggle to say no, when they recognize that you have a hard time with setting and keeping boundaries, sometimes what they'll do is they'll keep on pushing at the same boundaries, hoping that they'll be able to push those boundaries out the way, or hoping that you will just forget about the boundaries altogether and you will eventually just shape yourself around being what they want you to be so that you can be in service to them, so that they can get whatever out of you that they want to get, so that they can have the access to you that they want. And here's the bottom line. If you're someone who has struggled in the past with setting boundaries and the people around you know that, once you decide to start setting boundaries in your life, I can guarantee you this, that there will be people who are currently in your life who will not be able to remain in your life, because there are some people who are so accustomed to dealing with you as the person with no boundaries, as dealing with you as the person who is always forgiving, or for that matter, forgetful, where you may tell someone a boundary, and then when they don't follow that boundary, you either forgive them or you forget about the fact that they didn't do it, and you keep on moving forward the relationship. They're accustomed to you essentially being a doormat. Let's just call it what it is. And so with that said, once you start setting boundaries, they are going to push back. They may push back in the form of arguing with you. They may push back in the form of trying to push those boundaries further. They may even push back in the form of trying to tell you that your boundaries are unhealthy for them. Listen to me when I tell you this. You're going to get pushback. And so that's why you have to be very clear about, what are your boundaries? Why are these boundaries important to you? Why are they here? Why are you choosing to have these boundaries? And then from there, you have got to hold on to them and hold on to them tight. You need to communicate your boundaries to these folks when they cross them, or just let them know in advance. Hey, this is a new boundary for me. This is what's important to me. And you can have a conversation with them to be able to open the door for them telling you what their boundaries are, because it's a two-way conversation. But once you stated your boundary once, this is not a conversation to repeat. They are grown. They are adults. In fact, even with children, they can understand boundaries. Let's be very clear about that. Unless that child is below about the age of, I'd say, 7, they generally are pretty good at hearing a boundary and respecting them. In fact, I think children generally are better at respecting boundaries. They can hear something and say, okay, that's not something I should do with mommy. Okay, I should not talk to dad that way. They're clear about that. So when you're dealing with grown folks, And you are now setting your boundaries with them. You're changing the dynamics of your relationships with them because boundaries does change the dynamics of your relationships with people. And you're finding that these individuals are continuing to push at those boundaries. You're continuing to have to keep telling them over and over again, I don't like this. Please don't do that. I really don't care for that. This is what's important to me. And it seems like they're not getting it. It's not that they're not getting it. It's that they don't want the boundary. And if they don't want to deal with the boundary, then they don't want to deal with you. I'm going to say that again. If they don't want to respect your boundaries, then they don't want to be in relationship with you. That's the bottom line, because you cannot be in a relationship with me and not respect my boundaries, because my boundaries is what allows me to feel healthy. So if I can't be in a relationship with you and feel healthy, then we can't be in a relationship. And that's why I pay very close attention to who are the people that I have to constantly keep stating my boundaries to. Who are the people I have to keep on saying over and over and over again, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. That they are a problem. They are someone who's letting you know, I can't remain in your life, not at this point in time, or not in this form of relationship. So you have to make a decision for those types of people. How are you going to engage with them, if at all, so that you can feel healthy? Because it is not healthy for you to keep on having to restate your boundaries. Because when you have to do that, there's something that can happen in your mind. And sometimes they want this to happen in your mind. When you have to constantly keep restating your boundaries, eventually what can happen if you're not very attuned to this is that you can end up backing off of your boundaries, because eventually it feels like it's easier just to do things their way than it is to uphold your boundaries. So that's number one. You end up not honoring yourself. Number two, what can end up happening is you can start to question the validity of your own boundaries. You can start to question, well, do I really need this? Do I really need them to not do this? Is it really that important to me? And why do you do that? Because it begins to feel easier just to back off your boundaries or to question the validity of your boundaries than it is to acknowledge that, no, this person is not respecting me and my boundaries. And therefore, I may have to take the difficult step of cutting them off or pushing them back within my life. Right? So when you are dealing with someone who's not respecting your boundaries, this can affect you on a core level, because it makes you start to question your own boundaries. And when you start questioning your own boundaries, it doesn't just happen with that one boundary or with that one person. It can start to infect other relationships in your life, because we're not compartmentalized as human beings. How we do one thing is how we do everything. How we conduct one relationship uses a reflection of how we conduct other relationships. So if you're allowing someone to not respect your boundaries in one area, more than likely it's going to affect the other areas of your life, where you're going to allow other people to get a pass with not respecting your boundaries in those relationships. And then before you know it, you are surrounded with people. And some of y'all, this is how it is for you right now. And then you end up recognizing, dang, I'm surrounded with people who don't respect my boundaries. And whose fault will it be? Yours. What we have to recognize is that the people who don't respect our boundaries are not bad people. They're not bad people at all. They simply are people who may not be ready or able to be in our life at this point in time. And so once we can recognize that, and we can recognize that we deserve to live in spaces and be in relationships where we can feel comfortable, where we can feel honored, and where we can feel respected. You deserve that. Once you can really own that, then you will start to go about the mission of setting boundaries with people, and then only allowing people to be in your life or to remain in your life who respect those boundaries. Why? Because if you don't have happy, healthy relationships, then more than likely you don't have a very happy and healthy life. I don't know anybody who has relationships that are unhealthy, where people don't respect their boundaries, and they are sitting up here saying, I have a happy life. It doesn't work that way. Your relationships are a core part of your fulfillment in life. This is why this is important. They're a core part of your fulfillment in life. And so once you can recognize that these are the type of relationships I deserve, and you go about the business of starting to remove people from your life who can't give you that, and then adding people in who show that they can give you that, you're going to find that your life is going to transform in a really, really, really big way. This is something that happened for me. As I've mentioned in multiple videos, I'm someone who's been a people pleaser throughout most of my life. In fact, not being a people pleaser is something that happened within the last couple years. And it happened because I looked around myself and I said, I'm surrounded with people who I love and who love me. I'm surrounded with people that I've known in some cases for a short time and a long time. And what I recognized was that for some of those relationships, my boundaries weren't being respected. And that was something that was very difficult for me. And so what I decided to do was go about the hard step of trying to communicate those boundaries to people. And what I found was that some people would say, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know you felt that way." And then what I found was that over time, we were able to shape a relationship where my boundaries were respected and also their boundaries were respected. Because like I said before, it's a two-way street. When you tell people your boundaries, you should be prepared for them also to tell you their boundaries, because now you're opening up a new dimension in your relationship, a new level of communication. And so be prepared that at some point in time, they may tell you, "Hey, I don't like when you do X, Y, Z," because that's healthy. Just prepare for that. Okay. So I found that would happen in some parts of my relationships. But what I found was that in some other relationships, there were people who literally kept pushing at the same boundaries. It was as if somehow or another they didn't care about my boundaries, or as if somehow or another they didn't hear me when I told them the first time, or the second time, or the 18th time. And for those people, I had to make the very difficult choice that was the greatest blessing in my life, to let them go. Adults do not need to be told things multiple times. They do not. When they go to their job, if their employer or if they're self-employed, their clients or customers tell them, "Hey, I need this," or "I don't want that," they respond and do it accordingly. Why? Because they're getting something of value from that. They're getting money. They're getting employment. They're getting the ability to pay their bills. And so with that said, they will capture that boundary and they will honor that boundary very consistently because they're getting something that they want. Humans are very good at adjusting to doing what we need to do, or for that matter, not doing something when it's something that we need to get out of that situation. So if someone needs you to constantly keep telling them, "This is my boundary, this is my boundary, this is my boundary," it's not that they don't remember it. It's that they probably don't care, or they just don't want to do it. And so for me, once I started honoring my own boundaries, first of all, by acknowledging them to other people, and second of all, by making a commitment to myself that when I tell you my boundary, I have a 2-strike rule. I will tell you one time for your knowledge so you're aware of it, and another time as a reminder, because we're all human and sometimes we need a reminder. But after 2 times, then on that 3rd strike, I should say, you're out, baby, because what you've shown me is that this is not something that you're able or willing to do at this point in time, and that is okay. But what's not okay is for you and I to remain in the same type of relationship, because this relationship no longer honors me as the person that I am today. And so once I started letting people go from my life, or for that matter, just pushing back. Sometimes it's not a matter of saying, "I don't want to deal with you." No, sometimes it's pushing back so that you can have a relationship with them from a distance where you don't have to deal with their boundary crossing behaviors, right? Once I started doing that, it was the most freeing thing on earth, because what happens is this. Once I started honoring myself in that big part of my life, which is my relationships, I think our relationships are the biggest part of our life, right? So once I started honoring myself when it came to my relationships, what I noticed was that I started honoring myself in other areas. I started trusting myself more in other areas, because I said, wow, I made the hard choice to express my boundaries, which is an act of courage. And then I made the choice to actually enforce my boundaries, which was a huge act of courage. What else can I do? And so that started affecting me in other areas. I started honoring myself in other areas. I started speaking up for myself more in other areas across the board. And what I found was that through me improving how I communicated my boundaries to other people, and me also setting some boundaries around how I expect you to adjust and honor my boundaries quickly, okay, then what that did was that made me into a better person for myself. It improved my relationship with myself, because I said, wow, I'm finally taking care of myself. I'm finally putting me first. I'm finally doing what's best for me. And so now at this point in time, it is incredibly easy for me. And it was not at the beginning, but now it is incredibly easy for me. And this should be an encouragement for those of y'all where it scares you, the idea of setting your boundaries or communicating them. Listen when I tell you this. Once you start doing it and you start seeing the positive effects of doing it, it is going to be incredibly easy for you to set your boundaries. Now, I will say I don't love the idea of having difficult conversations, but I welcome them, because when I am dealing with someone and I find that we need to have a difficult conversation, that's what I call a boundary setting conversation, where I have to say, "Hey, can we talk for a moment? Yeah, this didn't work for me. Or I would really prefer if we did things that way. Or when you said this, it kind of affected me like that. Would you mind? Blah, blah, blah." when we have those kind of conversations, I welcome that because now I don't look at it as something, oh my God, I'm going to scare this person away. Oh my God, this person's not going to like me. I look at it from the point of view of this is an opportunity for us to improve our relationship. Because if I don't say something, here's what's going to happen. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. And in fact, comment below if you can relate to this. In the past, when I wouldn't say something to somebody about how they were crossing my boundaries, then what would happen is I would start resenting them because they would keep doing the same things. Or I would just kind of ghost and go quiet, and then they wouldn't hear from me anymore. And so now I welcome the difficult conversations because now it allows me to be able to set a very clear expectation with you around what it is that I need in my life, what it is I need from you, and also open my eyes to what you need as well, because it's a two-way street. And then for healthy people who are ready to have healthy relationships, they're going to give you that. And then you're going to be able to have an even better relationship with them. So that's what I've also experienced is that the relationships that have remained in my life have improved dramatically. Now, in some cases, how our relationships function may function a little bit differently, because what you'll find is that with some people, when you set a boundary with them, okay, that may mean that you may not have the same kind of relationship with them that you had in the past, but the new relationship will be much healthier. So the people who've remained in my life, it is a much healthier dynamic with them now, even if we may not talk quite as much, or even if our dynamic feels a little bit different. And so that's been a really beautiful thing. But for the people who have not remained in my life, it has been an equally beautiful thing because they have cleared out of my life, which meant that the stress of dealing with them, the anxiety of dealing with them, the resentment of dealing with them has gone as well. And therefore, it has created more room and more capacity in my life to now move forward with engaging new people into my life who do honor my boundaries, who do honor me, where we can start the relationship from scratch and build a healthy foundation from the beginning. And so for me, what's happened is it's been a win-win because my relationships have either improved or I've gotten new relationships to replace those that have improved. But either way, I've won. And that's what I need you to know for yourself, that when you start setting boundaries with people, some people will honor them, some people won't. But for those who won't honor them, you should not be focused on trying to continuously have conversations with them over and over and over again to try to get them to see the boundaries and honor the boundaries. They've shown you that they're not ready or willing to do that. And I know you have to grieve that because that means you're not going to be able to have the same type of relationship with that person or a continued relationship with them at all. I get it. But on the same page, we also have to find joy in recognizing that that person is now clearing space in your life for someone who's going to be able to give you what you need in that relationship so much better than the person who's shown you that I'm not willing to do that for you. And I'll tell you this, I know tomorrow's not promised. I'm not trying to make this some kind of scary talk about transitioning out of this earth, but tomorrow's not promised. We don't know the day and time that we won't be here anymore. And so with that said, with the limited time that we all have left on this earth, doesn't it make sense and doesn't it feel so good to know that your future could be filled with relationships that actually make you feel good rather than relationships that fill you with anxiety, rather than relationships that fill you with fear, rather than relationships that fill you with anxiety and resentment because this person keeps on not honoring your boundaries? Stop trying to get them to see what they refuse to see. Stop trying to get them to change what they refuse to change, and simply accept the fact that this is who they are at this point in their life. And that's okay. They simply don't work for you anymore. You all simply don't align anymore. And so it's okay to release them, to go through the natural grieving process of letting someone go while also holding on to the gratitude for the fact that you are so grateful for the fact that you have been able to see that person for exactly who they are. And now you're able to free them and free yourself so you can have the type of relationships that you desire and deserve. If you don't have my best-selling book, Get the You Know What Out of Your Own Way, go ahead and get that book. It's available where books are sold or through the link that's available directly above or below this video. But remember what I said. Now is the time for us to accept that if you have to keep on telling someone your boundaries over and over and over again, then that is a person who's no longer able to be in your life in a healthy way. And that's okay.